Kitchen Brain. Kitchen Brain. Kitchen Brain.
Hey, everybody. Today on Kitchen Brain Podcast, I am joined by two very special individuals who are doing real important and special work for the hospitality industry. We have the founder of Culinary Hospitality Outreach and Wellness, better known as CHOW, John Hinman, and Executive Director of CHOW, Erin Boyle. Thank you both for joining us today on Kitchen Brain. So, Erin and I met last year, I think it was. We were both part of a panel discussion for the American Culinary Federation that dealt with mental health and wellness. And we've kind of kept in touch ever since. And that for me, this has been kind of a long time coming, and definitely look out for some collaborations in the near future as we move through the year. But I want to start kind of chronologically with CHOW, with John as the founder. When you read your bio, John, the first line is "Pie changed my life." And I know that you're a pie maker, by passion in the kitchen. And tell us how that kind of manifested into your perspective on things and how you came to start CHOW.
How pie helped to start CHOW. Chowing on pie, right? Well, thank you, Michael, for having us today. It's a real honor to be here. Excited to share about CHOW and a little bit about our story. I always say, like at the end of my emails, it says, it's not about the pie. And I get a lot of questions about that because the pies have just seemed to be the vehicle that have gotten me to the next place or the next person. Pies, I think when you give somebody one, they instantly make them vulnerable. And majority of the time, 70% of the time, I would say I would get a story about their life or about their grandma or about an experience they had. That's just kind of coming to dawn on me more recently than when I was actually doing it more and getting the stories. I didn't realize what was happening so much. And then another big part of my story is that I've been in recovery from alcoholism for 10 years now. And CHOW was founded because when I went to my first recovery meeting, I don't remember what was said exactly, but I remember how I felt when I walked out of that room. And I was just astounded that these people were laughing at their tragedies, were telling the truth. I'd never been in a room that had been so honest before in my life. And like, they were sharing things that, you would take to your grave, and then laughing about them. But there was also, and it attracted me to come back the next time. It hit me somewhere dark in my heart that hadn't been awake in a long time. So CHOW was kind of born from that idea initially. And prior to starting CHOW, I was a pretty popular pastry chef in Denver. And I disappeared for a couple of years to get sober. And when I came back, there was a lot of articles written. So one of the last article that I was asked to participate in, I was very vocal about my sobriety. I just asked the author, can we do something? I don't need another attaboy. I know I'm not the only one that feels like this in the industry. So we decided that we would have a meeting 30 days after that article came out. And we did that. And I honestly thought none of these A-type personality chefs are going to show up to this thing. Who wants to talk about feelings or anything like that? And even if they knew what one was. But the way the universe had it, Anthony Bourdain unfortunately committed suicide 2 days before our first meeting. And at that first meeting, there was 40 people in attendance. Lots of people, a couple of people, not lots, talked about suicidal thoughts. And while we were going around the room, the meeting actually lasted a few hours. And while we were going down the room, I was just jotting down notes of all of our similarities. I was taught to listen for the similarities, not the differences. And the woman at the end got up and said, "This is my suicide plan for tonight." And she laid it all out on the table in front of all of us.
Wow.
And she is alive and well and happy today. But the dinger in my head went off, and I was like, okay, I'll be here at 5:30 next Monday. And that's how CHOW started. You know, every Monday, opened up my bakery at 5:30 and people started showing up, and CHOW was born.
Wow. And so it just grew from there. I mean, people just kind of organically came on board and just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think so. And we started, you know, like I said, talking about the similarities. You know, where does it hurt? You know, it hurts in my head. It drives me crazy. But where does it really hurt? It really hurts in my heart and my soul. You know, and when you're talking about those things, they're scary topics at first, but they, you know, from the broken place is where the victory is won, I believe. You know, so if we can start there and identify what that is, and start talking about it, and see where we go from there. My initial idea for CHOW was like, hey, let's put your toe in the idea of having these conversations, and once we figure out what's going on, maybe we can trampoline that person to the real help that they need. You know, and that's kind of the idea I had around CHOW, and it's becoming much more.
Yeah, and that's so important. You know, there's so many people out there, you know, whether in our industry or not, that just don't know the resources that are out there and available to them. I guess everybody just assumes that it's a very expensive thing and it's just out of their reach. So that's really cool. I love the connection with pie too. My wife and I were actually watching the news last night, and Jose Andres popped on there, and he said every plate of food is the beginning for a better tomorrow. And I think it's really cool that there are a lot of parallels, I think, to what we do in the industry and to change in general. You know, I think that food can really affect a lot of change, and it's pretty cool that you made that connection. Erin, Executive Director of CHOW, also background as a chef, graduate of the Culinary Institute of America, chefed in a few different states around the country. How did you get involved? What was your kind of trajectory like?
So I don't remember exactly where I heard about it, but I heard about it. I heard they had meetings in Denver. John was speaking at a slow food event, Slow Food Nations, a few years ago. And I hunted him down at that event and said, I can't get to Denver from Boulder. We need to start a Denver or a Boulder chapter. So he agreed. We started doing a couple meetings up there, and then the pandemic hit, and we transitioned to Zoom, and we started getting folks on calls from all over the country, like Tahoe, Vermont, all over the place. So as things were kind of building, he asked me to take over some of the social media stuff. Turns out I'm not gifted at that, but I tried really hard. And I just kept doing a few more things. And he had an aha moment at a craft store and called me and said, you should be the executive director. So I've been trying to do that for the last year.
Awesome.
And she's been doing a great job at it. You know, she was like, what do I know about executive directing? And I'm like, what do I know about? We went from literally a Monday meeting that had no budget, really just a name, to nothing, to all of a sudden having a budget and having people involved. At the beginning of COVID, an angel donated a bunch of money to us. And all of a sudden it was like, we have to be an organization. And at the same time, my business, you know, all the restaurants closed, and I was baking bread for over 100 restaurants.
Wow.
And I'm still in the process, it's almost over, but of flipping my entire business. You know, the pandemic think the word pivot got overused because it was more like dancing on the top of a needle in a tutu, and it's finally slowing down, but it was an experience. So Erin
Sure.
was a huge
Nice.
force.
John.
Nice. So
And
you're still making pie.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
But
I was making bread and pie before. Sorry.
No, I was just
Go
saying,
ahead,
to
Erin.
answer your question, I came to CHOW after years in the industry, and unfortunately being the person that was there, or the person that was called just after someone had attempted suicide. And I've dealt with my own mental health issues. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And I knew that the folks that I'd worked with for years, I couldn't be the only person that thought that this was a good mission and a good vision, and that we needed more of it. So that's the longer picture of how I got here.
Sure. So what types of mental health issues were you kind of dealing with in your world?
So I now have words for them, but when I was in restaurants, I didn't have time to deal with it or talk to anybody or even notice really. It wasn't until I left the last restaurant that I had time to get a therapist, and was diagnosed with anxiety, depression, ADHD, and a little PTSD. So I like to get the whole thing, the whole enchilada. And yet, I mean, when I was 16, I never attempted suicide, but I did have visions of if I hurt myself enough, I don't want to die, but I do want to hurt myself enough that this person will have to come see me in the hospital. They'll be obligated to pay attention to me. And that was, yeah, they just told me I had something that was similar to mono, because I had no energy, couldn't get out of bed, didn't really want to, didn't want to take care of myself. But looking back now, I know, I've been struggling with depression since at least 16.
Right. Now you said that, for at the time you didn't really have time to talk about it or get help. How do you view that kind of mindset now? If you look back on that, have you kind of changed your mind about not having time back then? I mean, have you kind of shifted and think about that? Do you think about that a little bit differently now?
I do. And I think we have times for the things that we value. And again, I didn't have the language, so I didn't know what I was missing. Nobody could have said this was a mental health issue and I would have understood it. So I think now that the conversation is being had a little bit more openly, people can go, oh, I know what that is. I've heard of anxiety. I've taken a test. It turns out I've answered enough questions positively for the depression screening. Now what am I going to do? And I think there is time, even in a busy restaurant schedule, to address it. There's all sorts of resources out there that don't take a lot of time. A lot of things have gone to telehealth or Zoom. So you don't have to leave where you are. You can take your break in between services. And so to answer your question, you can make time for the things that are important.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And again, another thing that I think people just don't know, they just don't realize it. And that's, I think in hospitality, we've been programmed to a large degree, not only that there's not time to take care of ourselves, but also in some cases it's not okay to talk about. It's not okay to be tired. It's not okay to be depressed or anxious or have any of these things, because you're on stage all the time, right? So put on a smile and kind of suppress your emotions and challenges and figure it out. So I think it's really, really important for people to hear that. There's a lot of, you said the words mental health issues a minute ago, and I really kind of want to get both of your perspective on this, because there is that stigma. And pretty recently on the Facebook group Chefs for Change that I am an administrator for, I ask the question about basically, you know, how is your mental health, or how do you view your mental health? And it's kind of interesting that people view the words mental health as a diagnosis instead of a state of being. Is that kind of a hurdle or an obstacle that you often deal with when you talk to people? I mean, how do you view that stigma?
That's a tricky one for me a little bit, because if you ask me how I'm doing, do I really know how I'm doing? Right? So how's your mental health? And I could say, I'm just perfectly fine and blah, 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 and I'm happy and da, 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 da. But really, like Erin just alluded to, she didn't have the words, something was off. So for me, I depend on a small village of people that catch me, and I'm open and vulnerable to that. As far as the stigma goes, I think it's a great topic for people to talk about. I mean, I talk freely about it because I'm a guy that shouldn't really be here today, so in order to keep it what I have today, I got to give away equally as much. And I realize that today. And if this is what I have to do and share my soul like this to help others, then it's worth it, because it keeps me alive. This work keeps me more alive than I can keep myself, if that makes sense. So getting vulnerable has been a really freeing thing in my perspective. I just know that I struggle and I can identify a lot of those struggles, or I rely on other people to help me identify them so I can work on them. If that answers your question in a roundabout way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's really interesting too, because it seems like what you're saying is that you're just talking and opening up and being vulnerable kind of became your most effective form of therapy. And that I believe is a pretty huge statement and realization for a lot of people too, because therapy it can be a really great thing. I don't necessarily know that everybody needs formal therapy, but just talking, I mean, some of the challenges that I've had, I find that when I speak openly about them, that I always feel better after, so I'm kind of the same way. I'm kind of an open book myself. So with CHOW, you all are offering all sorts of really great resources for people. If you check out the CHOW website, and I'll put the link down below, chowco.org, you can see kind of all the resources that they're offering, from peer discussion groups. You have a partnership also with Kesed Wellness. Can you tell me about that?
So they are offering clinical individual therapy for folks in the restaurant industry. I believe they have a pro bono program that covers your first few visits, and sometimes that's all anybody needs. Unfortunately, because of the rules of each state being different, they're only in Colorado and Texas right now. That said, if somebody is outside of Colorado or Texas, we have plenty of resources that we can find. So if you're in New Jersey listening to this and, okay, well, then I can't get the free therapy, I bet I can find a resource to help. There's probably something similar to Kesed, but Kesed is also, they're incredible. I know a few folks who've worked with them and have found really meaningful conversation there as well.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. What my employer offers, and I work for kind of a larger property. There are a lot of larger properties that offer employee assistance programs, and those are generally paid for by the employer and free to staff. But there's a lot of smaller businesses that can't afford to do that and aren't in a position to. So I'm going
to jump in on that,
sure,
because we also have an employee assistance program that gives you 6 free visits to therapy. We've also got life coach and financial assistance, and we're extending that offer to anyone that volunteers with us for 40 hours a year. so that not only you, but your entire family is covered. So your partner, your children. And I hunted a lot for this employee assistance program because they are extremely expensive. And we were able to find one that was willing to work with a small group, because right now we only have 5 people.
Sure.
So to spend $10,000 a year doesn't make sense. So they're willing to work with small, however small your group is, and grow with you as needed. So as you add more people, it'll get more expensive. I'll send you that information, but the group's called Triad. So again, I believe that if you want something and it's important, you'll find it.
It's
So
out there.
I think everyone, all of the restaurants, I think it works out to something like $45 per person a month to make sure that everybody is covered for their mental health.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I can put that link down below also for people to reference. But employers also can get resources from CHOW for their teams. What kind of things? I know that I saw something on the website about wellness self-check cards and wellness rewards programs. What's that all about?
Erin, I'll let you take that one.
Okay. So yeah, we have wellness check-in cards. I have one right here. Probably won't focus well, but it folds up to fit into your wallet or into your pocket or into your server booklet. It asks some general daily questions just to check in with yourself. Did I get enough sleep? Did I take time to eat? All of us in the restaurant industry knows there are some days that I didn't even have time to pee. I didn't take that time for myself. So this just gives you a little way to, I didn't do most of these things. Maybe tomorrow I'll try. Yeah, thanks, John. Yours isn't blurry. Maybe I'll try to do some of these things tomorrow. And then on the other side is questions to help start a conversation. And this could be a conversation with yourself or with a coworker or a friend. How are you really? Not just how are you? Fine. How are you really? Like, tell me, I'm asking because I want to know. I don't just want to walk past you. And then it has a list of the 24/7 hotlines that I think is super important. Because again, if you're in a situation where you're feeling really troubled, you don't want to have to look for this stuff. You want to reach in your pocket, grab it. Or if you're trying to help a friend, you don't want to have to search for this stuff. You mentioned the incentive program. So CHOW wants to give you prizes for taking care of yourself. So there's a point system for doing anything that we think is a good way to improve your mental health. So just like physical health, we've got to go on walks, we've got to go to the gym. Your mental health, maybe you journal or go to a CHOW meeting or drink enough water. Anything will get you points, and those points you can get prizes from us. That may be a journal, a water bottle. Forget what else we have. We also have it's called Amuse. Puppies, is that what you said?
Sharpies. No puppies.
Sharpies. Yes, no puppies. That might not be a reward for everyone. But we also have a Amuse mental health training. So we called it Amuse because it's just a small bite into the world of mental health and substance use disorder. But it's a facilitated training that'll give people the language so that maybe they have for themselves. Oh, that's what anxiety is. That's what addiction is. Maybe they have it for other people. Like, hey, I've noticed that your behavior has changed. Do you think you could be experiencing this? And then also how to support each other and a little bit of conflict resolution. So that hopefully if everybody takes this training, we don't have enough therapists if all of us decide to go to therapy tomorrow. So to your point, Michael, that not everybody needs therapy, that even if they did, we don't have enough therapists. So we all need to be here to support each other. And that's not saying that John's going to become my therapist, but it's just to empower John to know what to do, to say, hey, I'm concerned about you, but I don't know how to handle this. How can I help? I'm concerned, but I'm not qualified. Let me help you get help. So go to a CHOW meeting, go to therapy, go to a 12-step program.
That's really cool.
Yeah, thank God we're not all insane at once. we're able to help each
Are we
other.
not? Are we not, John?
Yeah. Maybe we are, but we're not all acting and saying it once. How's that?
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the card idea. I'm probably going to hit you guys up after this interview's over and see what I can do about getting some of those for my staff. And the accountability piece, I think, is really cool too with the rewards program. I mean, that's really kind of a fun way to be held accountable for these taking these important steps. So for all of the employers out there who are looking for ways, look, it's a big topic right now, right? When we talk about the mass staffing shortage that we're dealing with, I've been very open and vocal about my kind of perspective about it not being just about unemployment benefits and pay rates, but the environment. I mean, I think there are a lot of people that are kind of shying away from the stereotypical environment that has been hospitality. And if you're looking for ways to improve that environment and give your employees a benefit that is, not monetary, but something very meaningful that can really help them have an easier time performing for you and serving others, these resources that CHOW provides are pretty incredible and attainable to everybody. So, definitely check them out. So go ahead.
I was just going to say on that note, and as employers, managers, chefs, it's not your job again to be the therapist to fix it, but it is your job to bring it up, and not just once. Like, hey, we have this EAP. You stick the poster on the wall and you forget it. Unfortunately, mental health doesn't go away, so we've got to continue the conversation. So at least weekly, bring it up. Hey, does everybody know we have these resources? Okay, great.
Yeah, great, great point. So, you talk about the support groups. I noticed that you have a few different time slots for support groups. You have support groups that are women only. You have support groups in Spanish. All very accessible to people. It looks like they're all in Mountain Time, right? You're all in Colorado, is that right?
Yep.
So when we talk about support groups, this is kind of an interesting topic for some people too. People are very kind of careful about being seen or heard or being known when it comes to their specific challenges. How would somebody know that they could benefit from a CHOW meeting? I mean, who really needs to go to a support group meeting?
CHOW meetings are pretty, there's no requirement to come, other than having to touch the restaurant industry at some point in your life, but you don't have to be sober to come. Yes, be sober at the meeting, but you don't have to be in any sort of recovery. It's just that's where I come from. But there's a common thread there of like, hey, I don't feel good, so I drink. You don't feel good, so maybe you cut yourself. And hey, you don't feel so good, so maybe you eat, but our crux of our problems seem to be pretty similar. A lot of us are really unknowingly selfish. A lot of us are feeling alone. A lot of us are driven by our egos, and it gives us a chance to get together and break that down a little bit, and find where we're vulnerable again. And coming to a CHOW meeting, generally everybody leaves either wiping tears and smiling or just straight up smiling, like something is released, and people do come back after that, even if they're not in the business. We've had people come that are outside of it and said, oh, I never thought of so-and-so about that, or never thought about forgiveness in that way. I never thought about, Erin, what was the great meeting we had that we flipped it on end?
It was either self-care or nurture. There you go.
Nurture. That was a topic once. And man, talk about, there isn't a bigger industry of nurturers out there. And when we were presented with that question, the stuff that came out of that is like, who's nurturing us, at the end of the day? Because I missed my mother's 60th birthday party because I was cooking for somebody else's mother's 60th birthday party. We're extremists, when it comes to that stuff. So,
Yeah, we are. I often say we're like, we have these superpowers, that are specific to what we do, whether it's chefs or servers or whatever part of the hospitality you're in. We have this kind of superpower to be able to perform at a high level under pressure and stress, and always keep a smile on and stay organized and keep being inspiring to people, and being a mentor to people. And then we walk out of the doors of work, and it's like, the cape fell off, and we don't know what to do with ourselves. We don't use those powers on ourselves. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think that's a really good point too.
It comes to a point where we work so damn hard, it's too hard to think. And sometimes that's the drive. If I work this hard, I'll be that exhausted and I won't have to deal with, going like today. I've been working so hard. I have enough parking tickets that I had to talk myself out of one today. And the guy had the boot out and I begged him, to let me go down to the magistrate today. But, I don't deal with stuff, I just keep going. And my personal life's all over the place, so that avoidance is one of the things that the working in a restaurant can do for us until it doesn't work, and that's where CHOW can come in.
Sure. And I think just jumping to a treadmill for your New Year's resolution, or everybody kind of jumps to that. It's easy to get a gym membership and go, and that's important. Don't get me wrong. I mean, physical health is right up there, I think, with mental health, but it's just easier, I think, to get some weights to put in your basement, or feel like you're doing something and you post it on social media that you just ran a mile and you get celebration. But it's a lot more difficult, isn't it, to talk about things and work on your mental state.
Yeah. And I think in order to lift those weights, sometimes you got to talk about what's going on, to get that far. I mean, I'm 20 pounds underweight. I'm a wreck, after COVID, to be honest. But, I still am aware of, like, CHOW's important to me. CHOW keeps me at least somewhat on the beam. It doesn't keep me perfectly on the beam, but it's a good reminder every Monday it's a good check-in of where I'm at. And if I miss CHOW for 2 or 3 weeks and it's happened, I come back crazy,
Yeah.
So, we'd like to say, you can come to a meeting so you don't have to come to a meeting, go to a meeting so you don't have to come to a meeting, and keep yourself in good spirits.
Sure. Yeah. How has the pandemic,
I mean, that's a workout, like going to the gym. It's the same workout.
That's right.
It's different.
How has the pandemic kind of affected CHOW's work? I mean, what kind of things has anything really shifted in the work that you do? What have you seen out there?
Gosh, Erin would know best, but I would say everything. Pre-pandemic, CHOW was just a meeting at 5:30 on Monday nights, and now it's across the country. The word is getting out. I just had a conversation with a congressman last week who wants to attend a meeting. So that was a really interesting conversation, but it's getting known, and it's getting some support and a little bit of momentum behind it now that I never expected.
Yeah, I think moving to Zoom was the biggest change, and one that we would have never considered pre-pandemic. And it turns out to be one of those silver linings is this wasn't needed for just Denver and Boulder. This is needed for the industry. And I'm not saying that going to a CHOW meeting is going to fix everybody's problems and going to solve the hiring issues and staffing issues. But I will say every time I've gone to a meeting, I've left just a little bit. I mean, you can see my shoulders come down a little bit. I'm a little just bit more relaxed because I'm not the only one holding my problem anymore. The whole group has heard what I came to share, and we're all carrying it together. And it feels really different. And that sounds so woo-woo, and I'm not a woo-woo person, but it's incredibly, was going to say life-changing, but that sounds woo-woo too. But it really is to have this ready-made community that you step into, because we all know who you are. If you've worked and touched the restaurant industry, we know what you've gone through. You know what we've gone through. So we don't even need to start with, let me tell you why my job's hard. No. Let me tell you, let's talk about life and all of that. So we don't have to dance around getting to know each other. And it's yeah. So long story short, Zoom is the biggest change from the pandemic.
Yeah. And we are uniquely qualified to help each other. You know, there's nobody out there outside of the restaurant business, you know, that can really help us and understand where we are in that moment, if that makes sense. You know, we're uniquely qualified. You go see a therapist and they're like, well, go to the gym and do this and set aside 4 hours a week or whatever. And you're like, I'll set aside 4 hours, you know?
Yeah, even the best therapists will not
happen.
understand what it's like to get out of work at 2 a.m. just pumped with adrenaline and feeling either really good or really bad about how the night went. And what do I do with all this? Like,
and they don't know what happened the 10 hour prior. You know, they hadn't had a pan come in their direction. They hadn't gotten burned. They hadn't gotten hosed down with the dishwasher. They hadn't, you know, all this stuff.
Gotten screamed at.
Yeah, it's funny, like when you go to somebody else's Thanksgiving and somebody accidentally cuts themselves or something, it's tragic, but it's like, oh my God, break out the Band-Aids, and 4 people are around this little cut. And I'm like, run it underwater, stick it in cayenne, get back to work, you know?
Get some duct tape.
Get some super glue.
Yeah, it's a flesh wound, you know, literally.
Yeah, so relatability is important. And Erin, I've never said the words woo-woo out loud before, but I don't feel that anything you described sounds woo-woo at all. It actually, for me, it sounds very relieving and freeing to think about, you know, being in a room full or even a virtual room full of people that can relate to the things that I'm talking about, and everybody can kind of share that, I don't want to say burden, but kind of share the experience and take it on together.
I guess I'm just picturing Erin now speaking to Chef Erin 15 years ago, and Chef Erin would have been like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't have any problems. I'm fine. I'm just going to keep working. Like John said, nose to the grindstone. I don't have time to look up or deal with anything. And so comparatively, it feels very squishy.
Sure.
As opposed to the hard chef that I felt like, that persona that I was for so long.
Do you hear, I want to ask this question because of what you just said, because I recently had kind of a back and forth with somebody on social media about this idea. What do you think about I mean, I know that you're not for it, but there is this kind of overwhelming perception that there is that you can't be a high performing chef. Do you believe that you could still be the chef that you were when you were, you know, when we were all much younger, with that mindset and that drive and determination? Do you believe it's possible? You know, I kind of know the answer, but there's a lot of people who don't believe that it's possible to have both, to be that high performing, driven, goal oriented, and goal achieving chef, and also invest time in their mental health.
Yes, Saturday I would say no. And yesterday I watched a show on Netflix called The River Runner, I think, and it's about this kayaker who was, you know, he was the first kayaker to do this and that and do the video and this and that, and he was going to run these 4 rivers in India that nobody had ever done before, and he ran 3 of them, and he ran them all out of his ego, you know, and it broke him, and he wound up with a brain tumor. And 20 years later, he was able to do the 4th one, but he had to do, in order to get there, he had to walk away from what he loved doing the most, and that was kayaking, for 8 years. And then he had to reteach himself how to kayak. And this group of 20 somethings came up and supported him and got him down that 4th river. So, but he really did it himself. So, like I said, Saturday, I would say, no, I had to be that person. But when you hear that story and watch it flip and how he came at everything with gratitude and some respect for his life and others around him and acceptance, and not being the driven one, he was able to actually achieve more than he did on that one river than he did muscling his way through those three. If that
Very
makes
cool.
sense.
Very cool. That's on Netflix, The River Runner, you say?
I believe it's called The River Runner. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to check that out.
It's beautiful. It was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. I am currently the best supervisor I've ever been right now. If I could have more of the patience that I have now and the willingness to teach that I have now 15 years ago, I think restaurants are so reactionary, right? There's a problem, we react to it. But if we can twist it a little, and if I could have spent more time on training so that I wasn't getting upset during service when something went wrong, because I didn't teach the person how to set themselves up for success. And the patience that it takes to train the person properly, right? I used to just do it. Well, my caramel crystallized. What do I do? Start over. Well, what happened? I don't know. Just redo it, but do it right this time. Right? Like, I think
because you're trying to solve your own problem at the same
exactly.
time.
I've got
your
got
steak
6 burners
doesn't have the
going
right lines
too.
on it. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think if we are able to do a more wholesome look at the restaurant itself and build as we go, just like you prepare your station, you get your mise en place, you want to get your mental mise en place, you also want to like build people to grow with you, not just yell at them. I think I don't know that I could handle a 14-hour day right now though.
Yeah,
but
right.
I would love to have the opportunity to go back into a restaurant and see what it would be like now.
So we shouldn't tell people to go cry on the walk-in. Is that what you're saying?
I think the walk-in is a great place to cry.
We did a podcast a couple months ago about the beauty of the walk-in with other chefs around the country. And it's like, the walk-in, you could do a show yourself because we didn't even scratch the surface of it. And we talked about it for an hour,
right.
People get hired, fired, important conversations, babies are made, people get drunk, people tell the truth. People just go in there and scream at the top of their lungs. A booby trap is set, the walk-in to a server who aren't usually allowed to go in there. They see that beat up door. I mean, this is our poster is a walk-in, this is a Spanish version, but it,
right.
Ours says 86% of restaurant employees scream in the walk-in. That's how we get your attention, with a picture of a walk-in. So, if screaming in the walk-in doesn't cut it anymore, so
right.
we embrace the walk-in. It's a confessional,
Yeah, maybe my new studio will be in a walk-in. That would be kind of
awesome.
cool, wouldn't it? Somebody's going to steal that.
It would be soundproof.
Yeah, somebody's going to steal that from me.
You said it first.
That's right. It's time stamped. One more thing, John. I have heard kind of vague stories about a concert, your greatest concert, and I need to ask you about that because I'm super curious about this story.
I need to know which one, because you're talking to a guy that's been like, give me a hint. Because I've had so many great experiences.
Erin, you're going to have to help me here now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was angling for any, because you're such a concert guy. I was like, man, the question he's going to want to hear is, what's your greatest concert?
My greatest concert. I'll have to say, I had the opportunity. I've been a YouTube fan member since I was fan club member since I was 17. And I think the first concert my dad took both my brother and myself to was the Joshua Tree Tour in 1987 in Syracuse. And some things have happened over the years. My father now has 5 years of sobriety, and I had a lot to do with that. So they went on tour in 2017 and did the Joshua Tree start to finish. And I was able to get tickets for my brother, my dad, myself, at New Era Stadium in New Jersey on my brother's birthday to sit front row at U2. And to be able to get to do that, and now that was a couple of years later, we saw Bono out back, but to be able to get to do that with my dad and my brother, and really, the three of us always had these brick walls in between us, and to get to go there together and enjoy that again. And my dad still had his hat on from 1987. He dug it out and found his old Joshua Tree hat. My brother is awesome. My brother does work that, doesn't even touch what we do here at CHOW. He works for the state of New York, and he gives showers and changes diapers to people that are too old, and he really does the work of the world, my brother. But to be able to get to go spend that time with them was incredible, to get to do that and sing together and have those memories of riding in the car from years past. That was a real great experience for me.
Cool. Yeah, that is.
Then there was Springsteen on Broadway, and then there's this, and then there's that. I do go to a lot of shows.
That's awesome. Cool.
Going to concerts, big ones, is like going to church for me a lot. I love going to a Pearl Jam show because everybody is like, there's this angst, but there's also so much overwhelming love, and the house lights are on, and everybody's singing together, and you get this. That is my kind of church, is going to a concert.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Do you play anything? Are you a musician yourself?
No, I'm just an avid listener.
Nice.
A very, I would say, people call me an audiophile. I have tower speakers. I've got a problem.
Well, cool. Well, listen, John and Erin, thank you. Thanks again for taking time. Anybody who wants to, you should. Anybody who is looking for some options and some ideas to get some support. Any employers that are looking for ways to offer their teams some great resources to help with challenges, mental health, and wellness. www.chowco.org. I'll put the link down below, so it'll make it a little easier for you. Please like and share this episode of Kitchen Brain. Also, you guys have a private Facebook group too that people can join.
And you can join us for a live meeting every Monday night, 5:30 Mountain Time, or is it 6?
6. 6.
Yeah, I definitely highly recommend that you check out CHOW. Incredible resources, incredible people. So do that. John and Erin, thank you again for taking time to join us on Kitchen Brain. Keep doing what you do. Thank you for everything that you're doing to positively affect our industry. It's amazing work and really important. And I really appreciate everything that you all are doing. So keep doing it, and hopefully we can have some future conversations and work together on some projects in the future. But thank you both. Enjoy.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Michael. I feel the
Michael.
same about you.